Hi guys, what's up? Welcome to another episode of Let's Tech About It. And well, the tables have turned today. My name is Aayush. I'm still Aayush, and this is still Aman, all the way from LA. But the tables have turned because someone says that this is their best shot. And I'll tell you why I'm a little confused and a little upset with that sort of a campaign. Because is it really their best shot? I'm guessing if you're a tech geek like Aman and I, you've already guessed what we're talking about. Of course, it's the big event, the OnePlus event, that has just happened before us. And lo and behold, we have this fancy flagship and a little bit more in the ecosystem. But I'll tell you why the tables have turned. The tables have turned because a few years ago, or a few months ago, if you asked Aman, well, what was the one brand that he was crazy about, he'd say,
Apple.
and if you ask
And
me,
Aayush was
as OnePlus, and OnePlus. But this time around, I just, I've been for so many events by OnePlus and covered so many of these things in the tech world, and I just felt like they have not managed to pack a punch. And I'll tell you why. I say this with a heavy heart, almost with a broken heart, because Aman, and I'm going to put this ball in your court now, and this is my best shot to you, if that's the marketing campaign we're talking about, because for a long time they went on and on about how they're working on their camera and improving it to the point where the Samsung S21 Ultra and of course the iPhone 12 Pro Max would be out of the window and this would be the ultimate flagship camera. And when they say stuff like this, when I heard this, I was excited. And then all of a sudden, we hear about this Hasselblad partnership, which we sort of were the first ones to discuss on the Let's Tech About It podcast. This is in our special episode, which was what to expect from the OnePlus event and the upcoming Apple event. So you can go back and watch that. And this Hasselblad partnership, and Pete Lau's spoken about it, and OnePlus has been going on waxing lyrical about $150 million spent over 3 years. But Aman, I was disappointed because if this is what the ultimate camera and the ultimate smartphone, the marriage of the two looks like, I'm not buying it.
Don't you think it's a bit too soon to judge? I mean, come on. I mean, Hasselblad it's their first time in a smartphone. It's the first time OnePlus are working with them. There's obviously a little bit of teething problems, but it's. I see where you're coming from, and it's difficult because when you have a Samsung or you have an iPhone, you almost expect every picture to look in a certain way. You have that confidence that you go click, you push the button, and it's going to look good. And I agree that hasn't really happened yet, but I think that's just software, and I think that's the beauty of the world right now, because you can update something and it can get better. The hardware is right. They have it's a 4-camera system. You have two really large sensors: the 48 megapixel wide and the standard sensor. And the hardware is great. And then they have something interesting. They have a black and white sensor, which is kind of cool. Not sure exactly what it does, but I'm guessing that's. It's just to enhance the quality of the pictures. But like I said, I think with software, it can get better. And I know you're still not going to complete. Your expression doesn't look like you're agreeing with me, but we have to wait and watch, right?
Look, Aman, we've discussed these things before, and I've defended OnePlus tooth and nail because I knew that they innovated. Now, I'll tell you why I'm bummed out. Firstly, let's spell it out for everyone, and before I do, it's not just the software. I'm bummed out even about the hardware. And let me put it out there, spoiler alert, it's not a bad phone at all. The problem is, I think tend to expect so much more from OnePlus when they talk about innovation, so much more when their marketing campaign seems on point. But we'll get to that. The event unfolded in typical OnePlus fashion, and Aman and I were watching in our different time zones. But I'll tell you the biggest, dissing of the event that you can do, the roast. I had scheduled a workout around the time, 7:38 or whenever this event happened. And you know me, if it's something that big and if you're tweeting and we're chatting about it, I'll skip the workout. In this scenario, 10 minutes into the event, I chose not to skip my workout because I realized that this was just, not seeming as exciting as we perhaps made it out to be in our heads. Think about when we go and watch a football match. The first time you went to Old Trafford, or I went to Anfield, or we went to Spain for matches as well. And honestly, it looks fantastic on TV because that's the kind of beast television is. But it's a little bit of a bummer when you go there because the football, so to speak, doesn't seem as animated and doesn't look as 60 FPS or 30 FPS as you thought it would on your television set. What does seem better is the atmosphere around the crowds. So that's a different experience. But in this scenario, I got a little bummed out because, well, I don't know what that partnership means. And a full disclaimer, guys, Aman and I have not gotten those units yet. We might purchase it in the coming future just to get a full review for you guys, either for the YouTube channel or for the podcast. But I just feel, Aman, there were other things announced out there as well. And the overall feeling, the overall emotion was a little bit underwhelming, so to speak. Now, the OnePlus Watch, very quickly, we had a look at it. The bummer there was that it's not really running on Wear OS. And Wear OS comes with its shortcomings, but then it has its pros as well. We've done an entire exclusive, elaborative episode on smartwatches. And that was quite a bummer because...
here's the thing. This was OnePlus's opportunity to tell Google that, we're going to use Wear OS, we're going to help you develop it, help you make it better. But they just did what Samsung did and they built their own software. And I'm just like, how are you ever going to crack Apple's ecosystem if you don't actually embrace Google's ecosystem? It's pointless. Like, I just don't understand why they would do that. And if it was me, and you and I have both talked about it, Apple, for all its shortcomings, they get one thing right. They get their ecosystem right. And OnePlus has a major letdown in the watch where it's not ecosystem friendly because, sure, it's brand friendly where it's OnePlus and OnePlus, but it's not Google OS or Wear OS and Android, which is basically the same software.
No, you're right, Aman, and each time I think about it, it bums me out a little more because the watch was a little bit of a bummer, let's be honest. Then let's move on to the other things, right? Now you're talking about three phones, OnePlus 9 Pro, OnePlus 9, and of course the OnePlus 9R, which I think is an India-only offering. I don't think you guys have it in the US. It's going to be a budget offering over here where I think they've had a fair amount of success going back in their DNA to more affordable phones. And the OnePlus Nord series has been quite the rage over here. It's knocked out Samsung in a lot of stores, and people aren't buying budget Samsung phones because the people who own Xiaomi phones or their parents were on Redmi or Xiaomi or Oppo phones, they realize that the OS is quite crappy. And what OnePlus gives you is still the OS. We can't take that away from them. The others are tweaking their OS and their versions of it, but the OnePlus OS is as clean as it gets. I think that's what we fell in love with in the first place. And then you had this OnePlus 9 Pro, which is what I want to talk about. And that OnePlus 9 Pro, of course, there are pros and then there are cons. Now, the pros, of course, are, and the thing that isn't being spoken about, unfortunately enough, is that warp charger. Now, that is someone telling you, that is a brand telling Apple, this is what the market needs, this is what the market expects. And their hats off to OnePlus. Credit to Pete Lau where it's due. He'd always said, we will come in with wireless charging when we have, well, a solution which can really up things in the market, which can really make things a lot better or level up a bit. And they've really taught MagSafe how to do it. If you can go 50 watts on a OnePlus 9 Pro, what, in like 40 minutes, 45 minutes, you got a full charge on a wireless charging warp device. My mind is blown. If that technology existed in the supply chain in China, what on earth have Samsung, Apple, and the others been thinking? This is what we need.
I think MagSafe is like the biggest fail of the year if you look at it and compare it to what OnePlus has done. I mean, when we talk about innovation and how OnePlus used to be the innovators, they definitely got this one right, where they are definitely changing the landscape of fast charging and wireless charging. And that tech that they have is... it's top notch. And one thing though we have to mention is that you can only get that with OnePlus's proprietary wireless charging dock, which it actually kind of looks good, like a lot of the times you don't like the ones that come from these manufacturers just because they don't look as nice. But this one actually looks cool. It's all white and it's got a red, the red cable, which has been OnePlus's trademark since the day they launched their first phone. So that's pretty good as well. And yes, if Apple and Samsung are, I think Samsung still has good charging, but if Apple is listening, like they really need to up their game on that stand front.
See, because now look at the way they've sort of bridged the gap between wireless and wired charging for OnePlus devices. You can go up to 65 watts with the traditional brick, if you're going for wire charging, warp charging, and then wireless
Yep.
50 watts. That's not much of a difference, and that really changes the game for me. And I think that's how they've come up with the whole 120 hertz refresh rate. Look, I'm not going to go on about it because that's something Apple should have done yesterday, and I'm sure Apple will do it in a few months from now, because I think this was a conscious call that they took. But that said, Apple's displays are good, so I think they don't make you miss that 60 hertz. But of course, once you've been on 120 hertz, trust me, Aman, you never want to go back to 60 hertz. This is a smart adaptive 120 hertz display, so it could almost go down to minimal, pretty much like what you see on the always on display perhaps on the Apple Watch. So I
Right.
think that's great. There's a lot of improvements there. But what did they market this as? Our best shot. Now I want to really figure out whether that's a failed marketing campaign altogether, because from all the people I've spoken to in India who are using the phone, and from all the reviews online, there's only one thing that you understand, and that is that, well, this camera is great. It's not pathetic. It's not a step down, but it's not 10 steps up. It's perhaps an incremental change over the OnePlus 8 Pro's camera. All that Hasselblad partnership has come down to is nothing but color science. And that's something OnePlus
Yes.
needed to do all these years, because OnePlus, sort of like the Chinese phones, over-processed a lot of these images. Samsung got it right, and I think Apple
They learned.
was... Yeah, and I think Apple always had this lovely raw sort of image quality, and you knew it was an iPhone shot, and they went on with this shot on iPhone campaign. But then all of a sudden, when you see OnePlus phones coming in, they overprocess selfies, they made you look like you had a ton of makeup on. That has gotten better. The color science is where Hasselblad has come in. They're still using Sony sensors and stuff like that. So, great flagship stuff. Snapdragon, top of the line processor. We've only seen this on the S21 Ultra and seen it in all its glory. So I think everything's right under the hood. But that camera partnership, if you spend so much money, Aman, $150 million, I know you're saying it's early days, but think about it. Wouldn't you have expected something that amazing? Also, this is not a vlogger's delight. Remember, Hasselblad is known for still photos and still cameras. Where do us vloggers come in? Where do people who want to utilize, well, all the magnificence of this iPhone 12 Pro Max sensor, all the magnificence of the S21 Ultra, well, where do we come in? OnePlus still has a problem there. Also, the selfie camera, the biggest issue on OnePlus phones, and the main issue that we really face is that it gives you a very deep crop. I think they do it for stabilization, but even if you're holding it at an arm's length, you can barely get Aman and me in the frame together. So where have those improvements come in, Aman? I am pissed. I really thought OnePlus would have hit the ball out of the park, but they have failed to do so.
They tried. I think they've tried hard, and like you said, $150 million is a lot of money, and it's sad. It's sad because Hasselblad has a name. It's the best of the best when it comes to camera tech, and I guess what their focus was on color correction and getting the colors right of the images, and making sure that they're not too washed out, they're not too saturated, and they've probably got it right there. And that's why I say I lean on the software part of it now, and I feel like they just need to up their game and just come in with a lot of quick updates and get the small things right, because if they do, it could be a home run. It's not one yet, but it's the ball somewhere in the air, and it's up to them whether it lands in a glove or it lands out of the park. A little baseball reference there. Maybe America's catching on to me, I think.
Fair. That's fair enough, Aman. As long as you keep teching about it, it's all good. Whether it's America or India, it's the same thing. But what I really think matters is another thing that I want to talk about was price. Now, there are two rungs to it, and we'll quickly address the first one, which is about comparing it to the other elephants in the room. And then the second bit is all about, the fact that there's also a younger brother, a OnePlus 9, at least in global markets, and the kind of value for money that you're getting over here. Look, every year we see how OnePlus is moving away from the flagship killer category and now likes to pretend it is the flagship. So of course they're giving you all those features. It's still a little cheaper. Now in India, if it's going to cost you 65,000 rupees, right? 65, 70,000 rupees, whatever, if it costs you that amount, you are already creeping into the category above the flagship killers and the affordable flagships, and then just below the iPhones and the Samsung Galaxy series.
But-
That's the range that it comes in. But then if I tell you to pick up the phone for me, then for a consumer in America, it is almost the same price, isn't it?
Yeah, that's where I'm pissed off, because it's $1,069, which is $30 lesser than an iPhone 12 Pro Max, and that is nowhere, like, that's not where they should be playing the game. They're too far up from, for me out here in America. I think in India it is definitely, value. It's definitely the bang for your buck, right? I mean, it's 65,000 versus 130,000 for an iPhone 12 Pro Max. So there's pretty much no comparison there, where you're getting all of those high-end specs for, almost half the price. But out here in the US,
Yeah.
I am very disappointed. It's spending $1,069 for the OnePlus 9 Pro, where we've, as we just discussed, it is a little bit of a miss, where I'm still in the hope that it's gonna it's gonna be knocked out of the park, and it's gonna get better with the updates.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that's the right marketing, or if that's the right strategy for the US market. It's perfect for India.
So just very quickly to talk about it, the OnePlus 9 and the 9 Pro, well, if you're comparing the two, and we'll speak about it later, because at least I've been quite bummed out with the event. The Pro has a bigger screen. It includes a telephoto camera. It also includes HyperTouch, where it really polls for finger input at 360 hertz.
Yeah.
But the OnePlus 9, the regular one, like Aman was talking about, is $70 cheaper than Samsung's regular Galaxy S21. So even when it comes to the rung below the Pros in each line, it's $100 cheaper than the iPhone 12. But
Yes.
if you are switching ecosystems, I'll tell you where it all comes in, Aman. You and I have been talking about how this ecosystem needs to be built. And the war of the ecosystems has OnePlus managed to really put a spanner in the works for Apple when it comes to a competing ecosystem to give you that value product. And that's where I'm more bummed out. Okay, they have the OnePlus Buds, which are great. They're very reasonable. They have a OnePlus TV, which is outstanding. They have a OnePlus Band,
here.
which is just like any other Chinese band, of course. And then they have the OnePlus Watch, which we're not quite sure where it's headed, because yeah, it's a good value for money proposition, but in the same cost, you get fantastic Android Wear watches. I mean, if you want really good looking one compared to their Cobalt one, then you even get a lot of the fossils around the
Yeah,
same
they look fantastic.
price tag, and they look really good if you're not really worried about the fitness features and you just really want a good looking smartwatch with notifications. But that's the topic for another day. Now, the other thing I wanted to ask you about, Aman, was if you think about it, has OnePlus sort of, well, gotten it wrong? And I want to come back to this. Have they gotten it wrong with their marketing campaign of our best shot? Is it more like their last shot? Because they could have just let it be and waited for Hasselblad to really come in and change the whole ball game. I know the ultra wide camera has gotten much better. Everyone's been talking about that. And of course, they've got this whole bit where, other ultra wide cameras make it look like a GoPro and they cut the edges and this reforms the edges. A lot of people are saying that that's a gimmick, but that's what's bothering me. When I saw OnePlus innovate all these years, there was innovation and it came at a very incremental price increase. Now, I am seeing gimmicks, and Apple is famous for these gimmicks. Samsung is famous for copying Apple. OnePlus has done basically, it's so embarrassing now, because now OnePlus moving from the flagship killer category where they were this cool startup like brand, and now creeping into, hey man, I'm an iPhone now and I'm as good as a Samsung S21 Ultra. Now they're behaving like them as well. So I don't know if that augurs well for the future, because a lot of the traditional fans will be a little bummed out, I think.
Yeah, the other thing that bummed me out about the marketing campaign is they kept launching these 1-minute videos of, revealing the phone or revealing these images. And I'm just like, why are you doing that? Like, how am I left interested to actually watch the event where I've already seen what I want to see?
No, I have a
why
damn
tune
good point
in
there.
for-
I have
No,
a
but
damn
why would I
good
tune in
point.
for 1.5 hours for your event where I've already
Correct.
seen the phone, I've seen the images that come out of the phone, And that was one of my reasons where I'm like, okay, you know what? I'll watch it because I want to watch it and I want to know what it's about, but I don't need to.
It made sense, Aman, because, and by the way, there's a very interesting faux pas that happened with the OnePlus India team. The guys were tweeting, and they were tweeting promotional content for this launch, and they forgot that they were tweeting from an iPhone, and it came down right there
I
saying,
remember seeing
tweeted from iPhone. So yeah, that was kind of,
Yeah.
they were trolled like crazy. So I think they've
Crazy.
gotten a lot of things wrong this time around. But well, if they want to hide under the cool startup tag, you're forgiven. If you want to behave like a flagship, buddy, then I'm going to judge you.
And
like
you
a
got to
flagship.
deliver. You got to
Correct, right?
deliver. And they're not delivering yet. And I will keep saying the yet because I have the faith that they will. And it's just that, like you said, it's that ecosystem. It bums me out. It's like, why would I think there was a time where OnePlus convinced Apple users and even Samsung and other Android users to switch onto the OnePlus, jump onto the OnePlus train. And today, they're not doing that. Samsung, I think, with the S21 came a little close where I looked at that phone and I'm like, wow, this would be a good phone if I had to, jump over from an Apple. But I don't feel that with the OnePlus. And I did not expect to not feel that because I was so excited about it. And I will still say that the software is probably amazing. The Oxygen OS, it's really great. But there are things that I don't like. I don't like how the phone looks. And the back of it with that, I don't know, it's just not me.
The gradient,
I think that's
the gradient color.
Yeah, the
and stuff like that.
gradient. It's like a weird silver gray. It's not like, just do all space gray like how Apple did it. It just looks elegant and classy, and this weird purple lavender color on the 9.
So that's fine. So see, Aman, those things are still subjective, right? I'll tell you another
Yeah.
interesting piece that I want to get your attention to. Think about this. There was a company which came out with a fantastic flagship phone maybe 4 or 5 years ago called the Google Pixel. And now when they launched, everyone expected so much from it, right? Being Google's foray into hardware and Google's foray into mobile, smartphones. And at that time, when everyone was going crazy about the Google Pixel, I remember doing a show on TV then where we sort of analyzed what the whole Google event was like. And it was a great event back then because they were the only real competitors to the Apple event in terms of launches and hardware launches and software capabilities as well. And hype. And that marketing machinery, which I'm going to come to. That's going to be my second point. But I've started giving a lot of these spoiler alerts now. I should stop, right? I don't know why.
But you need to stop.
I need to stop. But when it comes to the Pixel, Aman, it was the price. When they revealed that the iPhone was costing nearly 65,000 rupees and this was costing almost the same, everyone put their hands up saying, oh my God, I just wasted my time tonight. I'm not going to spend so much. Arey, utna paisa to iPhone mein dete hain. We spend that much on an iPhone. Why would we buy a phone from Google? There were very few enthusiasts, stock Android, out-of-the-box Android enthusiasts who made that purchase. Very few, and that becomes smaller and smaller and smaller. And then they had these whole Pixel campaigns and, Pixel team and all that crap hashtags. But look, the truth is, that was a flop and they accepted it. Another thing that you were talking about, why would they release those 1-minute clips? Unbox Therapy had some very interesting insights on that on one of his podcasts. He says that, look, it's impossible to compete with the monster that is Apple, right? When it comes to their marketing campaign, even if it goes wrong, it's millions, billions that are pumped into that. So the way that OnePlus does it is sort of like the art of war, right? If you've read the book, where they're essentially using these tactics where they know when and how to leak it to all of us in the media, all of us in the content creation space. So when it's leaked out, that becomes the chatter. If you and me doing a podcast on it is enough marketing for them or anyone. See, that's a very, very smart sort of tactic there. I'm saying that all of those things are amazing because you have to compete with the monster that is Apple. What I'm bummed out about is that you shouldn't have put all your eggs in one basket with this Hasselblad and then not delivered. Now think about it. Their own sister concern, Vivo, launched, I don't know what is it, the Vivo Pro X60 or whatever, 60, the new flagship.
That's the one.
Just look at that phone. It has DSLR features. It has a Zeiss lens and it has DSLR features. That thing can give you well, do things that other phones can't. That has, well, a gimbal-like stabilization. If Vivo's doing it, then that's an innovation. I'll tell you, when the OnePlus 70, or was it this? I can't remember which one it was. I think 70 or 70 Pro, the one where the camera popped out. Now people made fun of it,
yeah.
but that phone was well ahead of its time. That is innovation. You see,
That's innovation.
everyone, Aman is getting pissed off every time about, oh my god, the bezel, the bezel, the bezel. Get rid of the bezel. Give a pop-up camera. See, there, Vivo and OnePlus and all were doing interesting things. Here, by just a partnership, which doesn't even give you video because the video doesn't seem much improved. Their nightscape's always been amazing. Their color science has gotten a little better. But give me that stabilization. I don't need to buy a gimbal then. And if Vivo's doing it, they at least pick that up. Maybe now in the OnePlus 9T, after they've heard our podcast, hopefully they'll say, hey, we've put this gimbal-like stabilization there. So let's reassess where it's all coming from and figure out saying, could this actually be a double whammy? Not only people calling them out for that Hasselblad bit, which every reviewer has sort of done. They've said, don't buy into the hype, except for Indian reviewers who go on about how everything is like a paid review. Let's get over with it. Well, of course, we do paid reviews, but then we also have the genuine Let's Tech About It podcast. Tune into this, for God's sake. And if you are, then let's wake up and smell the coffee. You haven't innovated. You haven't done enough for me.
You know, there was an interesting thing that I read recently about Tesla, and the reason why I talk about it is because everyone knows, or everyone criticizes Tesla for, the quality of the actual aluminum, or the gaps in the panel gaps, as you call it, for auto geeks. And there was something about how the Tesla cabin is really silent, but it is not built to be that silent, and they make it that silent by the software in the car, which in it's sort of like a noise cancellation for your car. And they do that purely with software. And if you compare it to your flagship Audis or Range Rovers that are so silent, because they're built that way, they're built with the best acoustics, the best, the seal around the doors, all of that. But Tesla could do it with software. So that gives me hope that OnePlus can get it right with software. They need to do it quickly because they need people to believe that it can happen. Everyone's not like me. Everyone's not,
As patient
as me. Yeah, as patient as me, and has as much faith in software as me. And I think they can get it right that way. They just need to do it. And on a side note, when we were talking about Pixel, and Google realized that they can't really do the flagships because it's clear, right? Their flagships weren't any good. Their hardware wasn't any good. And so they came down and they're doing their budget phones, which are really popular. But you know what they need to go back to is go back to your partnerships where either you do like a Nexus line where you team up with the best hardware manufacturers and then you put a pure Google experience on that, or you can do what they did with, I think what was it called? Like Google Edition phones, where it would be a Samsung S21, but with stock Android.
I don't know.
Cool.
Interesting. I don't know.
I think they need to go back to that.
I don't know if in this market that would work, but maybe taking 2 steps back would mean taking a step forward. Also, for all of you all tuned in, guys, do write into us and tell us what you think about the podcast. We've been getting a few mails on letstechpodcast@gmail.com. Of course, Aman always leaves our Instagram accounts down there. Write into us, tell us what it's about. And something I wanted to leave you guys with over there. For some of you who've written over the past few weeks, whether it's worth waiting for this OnePlus 9 Pro or whether it's a bang for your buck. Look, if you're on a OnePlus 8 series and you're on the 8 Pro, of course it doesn't make any sense to move to the 9 Pro. It's not that much of a difference and it's not worth it. I think let's wait for at least a couple of more cycles and then go for it. If you're on the OnePlus 6 or the OnePlus 7 and you really feel like you're missing out and this Hasselblad photo partnership really gets you going, then maybe you can wait for some good deals on it. But Aman, I think we should leave it at that. It's not the end of the road, like you said.
No, it's not. I think it can get better. And like when I look at the OnePlus, for me, the one thing that I've always liked about their phones is their screen, right? The screen is really beautiful. The refresh rate. So if you're in an older phone with a big notch, or you don't have the 120 hertz refresh rate, it might be worth upgrading because their screen is beautiful. And like we said, just wait. Things are gonna get better. I think I have confidence that OnePlus has, they know where the gaps are, and hopefully they'll do whatever they can to fill those gaps. And trust in software, trust in technology, trust in the Let's Tech podcast for us to keep giving you tips and updates and just hear us banter about tech.
My. The tables have turned, dear Apple and dear OnePlus fans, because Aman and I are on the other side of the table. Aman, it's interesting to be here. I'm very happy. I was scared, honestly. I'm going to end this on this note. I was scared that I'll feel a sense of FOMO after I picked up the 12 Pro Max. I can safely say this to anyone tuned in. I got it for, it cost obviously a little more money than the OnePlus, but I have not regretted that purchase when the S21 Ultra came out, and I sure as hell am not regretting it for the OnePlus 9 Pro launch. So that's about all we have on today's podcast. But yes, like I said, do write into us. And yes, maybe Apple will surprise us very soon with their upcoming event. I think it's going to be in April. Aman, thanks so much for joining us as well. You shall begin your day and I shall end mine on this note. So you're going to do the ending. I'm going to say adios.
Goodbye for now.